Record.
Okay, hi, I'm Jason Tanner, and I'm going to present a basic coaching model that Scrum Masters can use and Agile coaches can use. And it really provides a very fundamental framework for thinking about how to go about day-to-day work with teams to help them find ways to improve. So I've got a simple model sketched here. It has 5 steps, and the first step is observation. And no surprise there, that's where we start. And what I often find is that as a coach myself, and for most Scrum Masters, there's going to be many observations that you make throughout the day. For example, the daily Scrum ran longer than it normally does. Today it took 20 minutes, yesterday it took 15 minutes. The user stories that we're working on, it's unclear how the team is progressing with completing user stories. We're not getting a lot of support from another team. Those are all observations. They're very much fact-based. From those observations, we generate hypotheses, which is the next step in this basic 5-step model. We may have a hypothesis such as the reason that the daily Scrum took 20 minutes a day instead of 15 minutes is because one of the team members interrupted another team member with a question that led to a very long conversation that, while important, did go beyond our normal pattern for holding a daily Scrum. There's some type of reason behind an observation is the way I think about it. Now, as we're processing our observations and creating hypotheses, in general, we really want to have 2 or 3 hypotheses that we're thinking about as we're using this model. So let's continue with the daily Scrum example. So we observed that the daily Scrum took 20 minutes today, and our hypothesis is that the reason that the daily Scrum took so long was a conversation between two team members. And this is where the interesting part starts in the model, which is the design. The design is all about selecting the intervention that we want to use as a coach or Scrum Master to prove or disprove the hypothesis, which will lead to whatever outcome that we're seeking for whoever we're coaching, whether it's an individual or a team. In this case, the intervention that I may choose would be to have a simple conversation. I want to have a follow-up conversation with the individual, or potentially with the team. Maybe we should have a team conversation at a retrospective. At the retrospective, we should talk about how we want our daily Scrums to function. Or I may have no intervention. Maybe I choose nothing and want to return straight back to observation. That's fine. We may just decide that this isn't the right time for any intervention. Maybe I just collect this observation, store the hypothesis. If it happens again, if tomorrow our daily Scrum takes longer, or next week our daily Scrum takes longer, I can come back through this process. But let's say in this case that I do want to have a follow-up conversation one-on-one. That's where the design kicks in. How do I want that conversation to happen? Where and when should I have it? Is it just a short, impromptu hallway conversation? Is it something that we just need to talk about over lunch or coffee? Just in general, a brief conversation about how well the person understands the daily Scrum, how to allow things to happen without intervening in the meeting, how to talk about something after the meeting. Maybe that's what I want to do. And then I actually have the meeting, the intervention, which is typically where we often just go straight to intervening. This process allows us to think through a little bit more carefully what we're going to do. So we have the conversation over coffee, and we talk for about 10 minutes, and I ask the other team member, was that helpful? Is there anything I should have done differently? Which allows me to go to my own reflection. So, did I prove or disprove my hypothesis? Was this a good intervention or not? Is there something I would do differently? What do I want to change about that? What do I want to do with the information I gathered by going through the process and then right back to observe? Now, I also have this chart up here that allows us to think about a little bit more carefully all these observations, all these hypotheses we're collecting. And the two axes here are the reward from the intervention and the risk from the intervention. So as we're gathering all this information, and for new coaches, it's quite common, even for seasoned coaches, that there's just dozens and dozens of observations. We'll have many, many hypotheses. And we've really got to start looking at where are the really low risk, high reward options that we want to pursue. There may be high risk, low reward, and there may be the high reward, high risk. And generally when we're down here, this is okay. We really want to focus up here. This is the first quadrant we want to go after. This would be the second, this would be the third, and this would be the fourth. When we think about risk, it's risk to both the team or wherever we're coaching, but also in a way is to us. We as coaches and Scrum Masters, we have to think about our own self-care. Is the risk of taking on this particular opportunity really worth it for my ability to continue to be a change engine, influence in the organization, or not? Is this really a high-risk intervention for the team? There are some interventions that are very risky for the team. For example, moving ahead with a very advanced technique before the team has really figured out how to do the fundamentals of Scrum may not be a great idea early on. And for that reason, thinking about where all of the different hypotheses lie allows us to really sort through and think about all the things we want to do. So in one case where I was mentoring another young coach, she came to me with just a whole series of things that she was seeing. The product owner was not present for planning, showed up late, left early. The Scrum Master was having a hard time facilitating. The development team didn't want to be working together. The layout of the room was not effective for the team. People were scattered all over the building in their individual seats and didn't spend much time in the team room. All great observations. As we started looking in the hypotheses, we started talking about the product owner. The product owner is not present because the product owner is unclear about their responsibility. The product owner is not present because the product owner is multitasking, is assigned to too many different projects or different products. When you think about that hypothesis, that the product owner is assigned to too many projects, we're going to go to a high reward intervention, but it's also high risk because we're going to have to talk to management about reassigning the product owner or reassigning some work of the product owner to other people to free that person up to have more time with the team. So that's the way we think about taking all of the great information we're gathering from observations with the team, all the hypotheses we're generating, and then sorting through our plan of action, our backlog as coaches and as Scrum Masters. So that's a basic coaching model for Scrum Masters and coaches to use. Start with observation, create your hypotheses, design your intervention, execute the intervention with your coachee or your team, and then reflect on how it went. So you can make changes yourself as you go back through the cycle. And this is Jason Tanner, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch this little video. Thank you.